All right, welcome into our live.
Yeah.
But it's not really that live because it wouldn't record on the phone. So we are doing it from our office, from our HQ down in downtown Dallas, and we are somewhat 6 feet apart. So we're staying healthy, no worries there. But we had our podcast. It launched officially this week on Wednesday, and we had 5 extra episodes that launched with it. Last Wednesday, we had 1 episode that went live, and then this Wednesday we had 5 more. So there is 6 episodes out there for you to listen to. It covers all of our core values. And so we have 6 core values that make up our team and make up our business. And so we want to unpack that a little bit. You can listen to each episode. It goes in order of our core values. And so you can listen to those. We go in very deep into those. I think some of the episodes are around 22 minutes. Some are 30. Some are 40. So, go in and listen to that. So we're going to unpack it a little bit, share some of the overarching parts of them and what is really important to us as people of the business. And so we hope you align with some of them, and if you don't, then listen in anyways, because it's great. So we're going to take each one, we're going to read the core value, and then we're going to just share a couple of ways that we put this into practice, into our business, and into our lives. And a lot of these core values actually align with our personal values as well, which is why, it's so great to work here. So let's just dive into it. The very first episode talked about work hard and live well. So I'm going to read the core value. It says, we work hard, like really, really hard. Yep, it says it in there. We are high achievers who do what needs to be done to complete the task at hand. We believe in being present where your feet are at. When we're at work, we crush it. We produce big, needle-moving results. When we're not at work, we live well, enjoy ourselves, and reconnect with our personal values. This is one of my favorites because as an Enneagram 3 and as the person that I am, I love work. I find a lot of joy from work and doing really good things and doing a good job. And sometimes that merges into my life. And sometimes that notion of looking at my email all the time or staying in the mindset of work sticks around. And so I love that this is the first core value, and it reminds me as the leader of this company that there needs to be a balance and there needs to be a difference between work and between life. I have 2 kids at home and a husband and 2 large dogs, which are essentially humans as well. And sometimes I need to have that time to transition from work to life. The nice thing is that I live about 30 to 45 minutes away from work, and so I have that time to decompress and get ready to go home. But right now, during this time, I'm at home, working from home, like everybody else is. And so I'm trying to figure out some sort of change from work to life. So one of the ways that we have done this that I think anyone could apply is we have a channel called Slack. Slack is a free account. It is an internal communication tool that we use internally. And so we've put up a rule that's not necessarily written down, but maybe we should. I don't know.
I think it is.
Maybe it is.
It's somewhere in our document somewhere.
But the rule is if we are at work, we're going to use Slack to communicate with each other versus texting or phone calls or emails. And so we're going to use Slack. We all conveniently work in the same office. We do have some of our guys in the warehouse, and then the 3 of us on the office team are in the same office, and so we still use Slack because sometimes we're in the middle of something. But we also use Slack when it's after hours. Sometimes I do like to work still late into the evening. I've gotten a lot better about it, but sometimes I still do. And so if I need to get a hold of Kaylee or Jade or someone else on the team, I will Slack them, and they have a quiet mode on their phones. They have something that doesn't disturb their lives at home. And so that is something that we put into practice so that Kaylee can have time with her husband and be at home with him and not feel like I'm interrupting something. And so we do have a rule, though, that if there is an emergency, if someone needs to get a hold of someone right away, then that is the only time that a phone call or a text is warranted. And so we know that if I'm calling Kaylee at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening, she probably knows I really actually need to get a hold of her right now. So that's a rule. That's a thing that we have put together that helps us tangibly have that time that we are dedicated to working and then dedicated to being at home with our families. Kaylee, what's one of your things that you do? I know that you have a practice of journaling, and so let's talk about that.
First of all, I forgot to introduce myself.
Yes.
Don't listen it on the live and just got into the rhythm of it. She knows me, I know her, so whatever. I'm Kaylee. I'm the Chief Creative Officer here at Beautiful Event Rentals, and so yes, my practice, just wanted to let you know who I was.
Yes, Kaylee's been on the team for 2.5 years, so you've likely seen her on social media. If you've been to our office, if you've been to networking events, she has likely met you at some point. You probably talked to her over the phone or texted, or maybe not texted, but emailed with her.
Right. So if you've been on a webinar, I'm the girl behind the scenes.
Yes.
That's me. Hello. Hello, everyone. So with Work Hard, Live Well, so at one point we were in a different office. I lived 5 minutes away from our office, which was great for my commute life. But I was finding that I was really struggling to switch between work and home. And my thoughts would just constantly roll with like work of like, okay, I didn't do this task today, I need to do that tomorrow, whatever. And I just was like stuck in thinking about work, and I couldn't really balance the two. And I'm a big proponent of when you are with your work people, like be with your work people. And when you're at home, like be at home. Like I know that you've talked about before that there's not really such thing as work-life balance, but you can create that, and you can be present where your feet are, and I really try to model that. So the way that I've suggested a friend to do it, and then I was like, oh man, I should do that myself, was having a journal that's in your car, so that whenever you leave work, you can drive and you can think about like the day, and you can process things mentally, but when you get home, before you get out of your car, just journal it, like write it all down. That way you're putting pen to paper, and you're typing things. If you want to do it on your phone, you can do that, but I would recommend a physical journal. But just like write everything down, write a to-do list for tomorrow, write out your thoughts, things that you're excited about that you did or you accomplished or whatever. Get it all out on paper, and then close it up, put it down, and go inside and be at home. And that's really helped my friend, that's really helped me, like make that division of like, okay, I've ended the day. Like, I've ended the work day. I'm no longer working. I can show up again tomorrow, and those things, I'm still going to remember them. But it's really helped create that balance. And I no longer, like, there are still things that I think about after work that may be on my mind that I'm like, oh, I need to do that tomorrow. Then you can run to your car, write it down, and then go back inside. So it's been really helpful. And if that's like anything that if you need that balance, just try it. And if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work. That's fine. But it could be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And you're 5 times more likely to remember something if you write it down, like physically write it down, versus trying to remember it and having it show up in your dreams or something.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, take us into core value 2, which is episode 2.
Episode 2, community oriented. We are intentional about inclusion and creating opportunities within both our company and our community. We strive to be an organization filled with people who are more different than alike. We believe that you can't serve a diverse world if your organization isn't a microcosm of that diversity.
So good. Yeah. Kaylee joined us in on this episode, so you can hear her lovely voice. Talk us a little bit about community oriented. What do we do? What is some of our favorite parts of this core value?
Sure. So one thing to note is intentional. We talk a lot about this on the episode, and this shows up in a few of our other core values, and we talk about it a lot. It was before we had core values, it was like we had 3 key words that we kind of modeled everything off of, and this was one of those. And so one thing to note is that intentional is about being deliberate, and is about being purpose-driven and like doing something. And so it's an active, it's a verb. And so with community-oriented, you have to do it. Like you have to build it out, and you have to work to create community. And so in the episode, we talk a lot about like, one, how we've done that, why we do that, I share some numbers with you and break down the time that you're with the people that you work with. If you work 40 hours and you work 48 weeks in a year. And so just, it's a lot of time. You can go into the episode and listen to how much time it is. It's a lot. But if you don't know the people that you're working with, then what's the point? Like, why would you want to show up to work every day if you're not known and if you don't know the people that you work with? That's kind of boring. That would be like working at, like, I don't know. That would not suit me well.
It's like half your life. If you take out your sleeping hours,
right?
It's the people you work with is half your life. I mean, you need to know the people who you're working with.
Well, and that's when your culture, and that's when your employees become a team. And you talk a lot about team and making sure that if you're building a company, that they're not your employees, they're team members. And I love that. And I think that's like truly the essence of what community-oriented is, especially here at Burr. We really strive to be there for the people that we work with every day and be there for our team members.
Yeah. We definitely talk a lot about team versus employees or contractors. And one of the biggest points that we make is the only time that we call them employees or contractors is when the IRS is involved, or when somewhat of the government, like the PPP stuff that's going on right now, that is when they are employees and contractors. But outside of that, you will never hear me say, oh yeah, one of my employees on my team, see, I'm saying it, on my team, because I talk about the team all the time. I never say one of my employees did this really great. I say one of the girls on my team or one of the guys on my team is doing something awesome or whatever it is, because they're really team members and they're part of this family that we've put together. We've walked through really hard times all together with our personal lives or here at the office or here at the business. We've worked through really happy times. And Kaylee's gotten married while she's been on our team, and that was such a celebratory thing. And, you know, people have had kids or people have had things that have happened in their life, and we get to celebrate that. And birthdays is one of our favorite things around here. We really, truly try to celebrate that, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But coming back to community-oriented, one of the things we love to do is give back to our communities. Not necessarily just here in the office, not necessarily just with our team, but our communities here in Dallas and Fort Worth. We, every quarter, unfortunately not the first quarter, and maybe not the second quarter, depending on how everything pans out, but every quarter we have one of our team members pick an organization to give back to with our time. And so that might look like going and serving food to homeless. That might look like going and playing with kids at an orphanage. It doesn't matter what it is, but we want to give back to our team with our time. And so somebody who's thrown out going and playing with puppies, which team building / community, I think it's great.
You started that train.
I don't think I did.
I think you were listing off options.
Oh, maybe
and that was one of them. And one of our team members was like, yes. That's what I want to do.
That's right.
He was like, I didn't think of that as a serving opportunity, but
we can make it work.
That's what we're gonna do. So you started that.
I might have.
I might have.
But
I'm for it.
So we like to give back to our community. There has been things that have happened in the Dallas Metroplex. Like last year in the fall, there was a big tornado that hit our city, and so we gave back with our resources, our rentals. We have rental pieces, and so we were able to help a benefit concert that was putting together funds to give back to the city of Dallas to help rebuild. And so whether that means with our actual product, our finances, our time, whatever it is, we like to try to give back as much as possible and as it makes sense for the company. Of course, we're not going to go into debt over giving back because we do have to stay around to give back, but we do like to give back as much as we can when it makes sense. And so I love community-oriented. I think it's always been a heartstring of our business before we even had core values. So, all right, episode 3 is our third core value. It says better than yesterday. We are growth-minded. We believe that our only competition is who we were yesterday. We get excited about connecting and serving with those in our community and creating margin in the lives of our team. One of the things I say on the episode is that your competition is ourselves. It's not the rental company down the street. It's not a rental company in another state that we really love so much and want to be like. Our competition is who we were yesterday. It is only us. Our competition is ourselves. It is not the people around us. Because the people around us don't have our clientele. The people around us don't have our team. The people around us don't have our inventory and what we have and what we do as a business. And so we can't compare ourselves to someone in our city or even another state because that's not our competition. Our competition is who we were yesterday, 2 months ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. That's our competition. It's not who we are in community with. It talks right in here that it's about our community and serving alongside those in our community, not comparing ourselves to our community. And so that's something that I know that Rising Tide has a slogan that they say community over competition, which is so incredible, but it takes it a step further and says still community over our competition, but our competition is in our community. And that's something that we need to make sure is not a revolving circle of saying community over competition while our competition isn't our community either. Our competition is us. It's who we are as a team. It's who we were a year ago, and we're comparing our numbers to our numbers, not to somebody else's. We're comparing our team to our team, not somebody else's. And same thing with our inventory. If you don't have inventory, if you have a photography business, or if you have a venue or something else, then you're comparing yourself to your venue, not to somebody else's venue, and you're not comparing your photos to somebody else's photos. Or take really any business that you have. It doesn't have to be someone in the creative industry. So your competition is who you are, not who your community is. So that's something that I try to really explain in the episode, and so you can go listen more about it. But that's the general mantra around why we chose this core value and why it's important to us.
I wish I had a mic and I could just mic it up. Because that's so good. Like I hadn't really thought about it that way. Of like, yes, you hear that statement of community over competition, which is great. It's a great model, but that's so true of like remembering like we are our competition, and you have to show up your best self, and you have to show up better than you were. And it ties back into growth mindset and just being growth minded of like looking back and saying, okay, like have we grown from here to here? Even if it's just a day, did I grow today? That's wow. Well done.
Gosh, I feel like you could put together a 45-minute
you could
talk on this.
We're not going to do that today. We're not going to
talk about growth minded, but
yeah, for sure. Maybe later.
Stay
tuned for that content. Okay,
right.
Plan to succeed. Number 4, episode 4. Are you catching on a theme? Hopefully, maybe. We did this intentionally. See, intentionality.
Yep.
There we go. First line, we are intentional. We focus on results, not to-dos. We are clear in our expectations. We anticipate. We believe that you can achieve anything if you are focused, hardworking, and have a roadmap. Talk about what a roadmap is really quick.
Okay, so a roadmap is how you get to your goal, how you get to what you say that you put out into the world. So that could be a revenue number, that could be something that you want to add to your business, or a number of events that you want to take. It can be anything. Whatever you say, hey, in 2020 I want to do this, or in this quarter or this month, this is what I want to make sure is happening. And so that's a result that we want to happen. But we can't just say there's going to be a result without some action behind it. And so a roadmap talks about the certain things that we're going to do in order for that to come true. And so we work backwards or forwards, and we say, all right, these things need to happen before that happens. So if we say this is the revenue number that we want to call out this year, and this is what we're striving for, well, we can't just say it and hope it comes true and still do the same thing that we're always doing. A goal is something that pushes us to get somewhere. And so if we're going to be pushed to get somewhere, we have to have some tangible things that have to happen and have to be true in order to get to that goal. And so a roadmap is just the map that it takes to get to that goal. Roadmap is something that we've learned from Rachel Hollis. We went to her business conference in November in Charleston last year, and so it really has helped us as a business to really pay attention to how we're telling about goals, how we're putting goals out there, and how we're actually going to get there. Because the same revenue number that we called out this year, we called out last year, but we didn't have a roadmap. And it might not happen this year because of everything going on, but we have a plan to get there. We have something in writing that's a roadmap. And so that's what a roadmap is.
Right. Well, and what you said about we may not get there this year, but we did anticipate roadblocks happening, and we did talk through what could happen that would put us off course. Unfortunately, we could not predict a pandemic, but we
Maybe we should have been looking in China at the time that we were putting these together, because it started right around the time that
exactly.
we were doing this.
But we did think through, like, okay, if this happens, then how are we going to overcome that? And this was unforeseeable, so we will plan better next time, and we will continue to plan. But you said something that I wanted to touch on. Oh, yes. Okay, so before we implemented roadmaps, we were successful in certain areas, but we probably weren't as successful as we could have been because expectations weren't clear. And Cam had a really great idea, and we were like, okay, let's do this, but we didn't clearly know what the expectation was and what the results needed to be. So we achieved things, but I don't think we achieved it to the measure of what we have now, because we have set up a source of like coming back to, of like, oh wait, we forgot, let's go back, okay, this is what we need to do. And so it's really helped as a team kind of rally behind a goal and an idea, because everyone knows the steps that we need to take to get there, and so everyone is a part of it. And so everyone as a team can play into that result, into that goal.
Yeah. We typically have a bi-weekly meeting that reviews what our goals are and reviews those roadmaps and says, all right, this is what we said we were going to do. Are we doing it?
Yeah.
Are we checking in? Are we actually doing what we say we're going to do? We have not been doing it very recently, because I think everyone's in survival mode and you're just trying to stay afloat. So we're going to get back to those very, very soon. But we needed to make sure that, we were still here by the time this is over. And so something along with the roadmap is you got to check in. You got to make sure that you're staying on your roadmap and create new roadmaps. The kicker is you can create new roadmaps if something happens. You can create something else that says, all right, this is what we strove for, but a pandemic happened. And so how are we going to pivot, and how are we going to make that roadmap? Maybe it's not the same goal anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a different goal, and that's okay. That's a good thing. If we, when we put these together, we weren't as strong as we are right now. This whole pandemic that's happening, it's made us stronger, and it's made us wiser with how we're spending money and how we're going about business. And so there's no way that we could maybe we're about to do a goal setting meeting in the next week or so, but there's no way that we could have that if this didn't happen. There's no way that we could have launched this education platform and this podcast if this didn't happen. Right now is our busiest season. Last year, I think we had 22 events on one of these weekends.
Yeah.
We have 0, which is okay. We're staying afloat. We're still here. But we wouldn't have time to do what we're doing right now, which is inevitably helping someone else, and it might be helping you. And so it's a good thing in disguise that this is happening and our business is slowing down so that we can pour into our community and can be here for you guys. And that's not to say that we're insensitive, that there's things going on. Because I do know that there are things going on, and there's real heartache, and there's really terrible things going on. And so that's not to be insensitive or anything to that, but it's just to say, hey, in our businesses, this might be a chance for us to do something that is more worth it and is helping our communities and pouring into others when we wouldn't ever have this time in this time of the year to do so. So just want to make sure that's clear. All right, let's dive into our, what are we on, the 5th one? Our 5th episode is talking all about servant leadership. It says, we are servant leaders. We are giving. We believe to whom much is given, much is expected. We believe in showing up for others with our hands, our hearts, and our finances. We had, at the conference, Chris Hogan from the Ramsey Network got to talk all about servant leadership. And so there's a lot of references to some of what he talked about in our episode that we talked about, episode 5. But it was incredible to hear from what I would say is one of the best businesses out there who has done things very, very right, to talk about servant leadership in a company that I think he had said like 300 to 500 employees are in his business or in that business, but they can still be servant leaders from the very top. And from Dave Ramsey himself as a servant leader, he told stories multiple stories about how, they'd be unloading a truck, and what seems like someone's, first day or newbies or someone else would be unloading the truck. Dave Ramsey himself went down there and unloaded the truck with them. And so not often do you see that. I'm sure at Target you probably don't see the CEO of Target going and unloading a truck. Not to say Target's bad, because gosh, I love Target. But just talking about servant leadership, Dave Ramsey himself would go and do something that is not typical that a CEO would do. Mm-hmm. And so he was just incredible to hear from. He was probably my favorite speaker out of the whole weekend. On the last day, it was a 3-day conference.
He has the deepest voice you will ever hear.
He does.
I genuinely thought it was a fake voice, and then he kept talking, and I was like, nope.
It's like the sports radio, like deep,
hey.
Like very.
And he looks like a teddy bear, so it's like the most confusing thing ever, but it's deep. You should just YouTube. You should YouTube Chris Hogan and just listen to his voice, because it's like, oh my
He's got a podcast as well. It's it talks about leadership and servant leadership and entrepreneurship. So cool. Another great podcast outside of ours to listen to. But just the whole everything talking about servant leadership. I think when people think about being a leader or think about being a boss babe or a boss, they don't think about the servant side of it. And so I think it's so important to not only think about leadership as the leader with the people under you, but being a leader with linking arms next to you. Everyone on your team is the same importance on the team. We have different roles and we have different things that we do within the team, but we're linking arms and we're going after this goal that we have all together. Yeah. From us on the leadership team to our delivery crews that work part-time. We're all linking arms and we're all going for the same goal, and it takes everyone on the team to do that. And so it's not all about me, it's not all about Kaylee, it's not all about our office staff, it's about everyone. So
yeah, and everyone in their own way is a leader, and it just looks differently. Like, we are on the leadership team, but John's a leader, and Reggie's a leader, and all of these people are leaders in their own way. And what I love about this core value and what you said earlier is that a lot of these core values align with our personal core values, and not often does that happen in a company that you work with, but it's really sweet to be able to work here and get to do that, because personally, I've decided to chase after Jesus in my life, and so it's cool, because in my opinion, he's the best leader example out there. No one really touches his leadership style, and so for me, the way that I do this is that I do my best to chase after him so that I can show up for these people the best that I can. And I loved in the podcast when you talked about what Brendan Burchard said about showing up for people. And I actually had a friend who listened to the podcast and was like, that's what I loved about it. Like, I've never thought about that. And so it's a really good perspective shift, and I'll let you listen to the episode. I'm not going to share it here, so go listen to episode 5, but it's just so good about thinking about how you can show up for others. And you talk a lot about in this episode about humility, and that's really the essence of servant leadership, and what you talked about, flipping it on its head. And I think at Rise Business, he gave the example, or there was a slide, and it was a triangle. And so in a traditional business, the leadership, the CEO is at the top, then the leadership team, then the employees, and then the clients. Mm-hmm. He flipped it upside down. So at the top is your clients, then your employees, then the leadership team, then the CEO. And so it's the very bottom. So wherever you fall on that line, you should put yourself at the bottom. So you're always at the bottom, and you're always looking out to other people. And so I love this core value. I think it's really shaped this company, this culture, and I think a lot of people feel that. Hopefully, I know our team does, but I think our clients do too. And so, it's a great thing to model. Yeah.
And one of the lines in here, it says, "We believe to whom much is given, much is expected." That aligns with the Bible as well. It aligns with, hey, we are so beyond blessed. Whether you're a believer or not, you're so beyond blessed. We live in America. We live in a big city that is doing well. All that's happening in the world, Dallas is doing well. And if you don't live here in Dallas, I hope your city is doing well as well. But we're so blessed with the things that we have. To even own a business at all, I mean, to be an entrepreneur, that's incredible. It's a gift that we've been given. And so if we are blessed with all this stuff, if we are blessed to have this office, this building that we're sitting in right now, man, there's so many people who can't have this. And so if we are so blessed with everything that we have, why wouldn't we give it away? Why wouldn't we go out and be servant leaders where we're at?
Yeah, and share that with our community.
Yeah.
So I just love how, if you haven't picked up on it, almost all of these fall back onto each other. They all play in tandem with each other. The more that we've talked about and broken down each core value, I'm like, yep, that one goes back to community, and that one goes back to growth-minded, and that one goes back to choosing joy. And so, I love that.
Well, your favorite is the very last one.
It is.
My favorite's the first one. Your favorite's the last one.
Yeah.
Bring it home.
All right.
Tell us about it.
We choose joy every freaking day. It does say that. I wish I could show you on the paper. It says that. Go onto our website. You can see it. We choose a positive outlook. We choose to ground ourselves in gratitude and celebrate wins. We want to work in an environment with amazing energy, the kind you can feel when you walk through the door.
Love it.
Love it.
Even when times are like they are, we choose joy.
Yeah. There's always something. There's always, even if you're at the bottom of bottom, there's always something. If you look for it, you have to look for it. But there's always something to be grateful for. There's always something to celebrate. And things are worthy of celebrating. In the episode, we talk a lot about gratitude and how we practice that. We talk about celebrating. And I was thinking about this because I think it's very relevant for the season that we're in. But I think a lot of people are going to leave this season whenever it ends and just move on by. They're going to think about it and maybe have a negative aspect, maybe have some negative feelings towards it. And while I deeply understand that, there is also a lot to be grateful for in this season. And there is reason to celebrate at the end of this season or in the middle of this season, because that will pivot your perspective into thinking about this as to be grateful for it. I'm grateful for this season because I've gotten to really slow down. At the beginning of the year, I hate coming up with words, but I did it. I came up with a word. I'm an Enneagram 4. I don't want to be like other people, but I did. I picked a word. And this year, my goal was to really be mindful in the way that I live and just have a slow rhythm to my life. And the pandemic has really caused me to do that. I really have to slow down. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I'm grateful for just the little things in life that you don't really notice. Like the other day, this will really hint at my 4-ness, but I was reading a book outside and a little rainbow reflection came into my book and I was like, oh, wow, this is the sweetest moment. And if I was just reading, I probably wouldn't have picked up on that. Maybe I would have, but those little gifts are just sweet reminders of, hey, this season is hard, but it's good. And you're growing in this season, whether you think that you are or not, you are, because you're going through something that's really hard and everyone is dealing with this really hard thing. And so I love this core value. I love that we do this as a team and that we choose joy as a team. It's so good. It's my favorite.
One thing that it says in there is that we choose gratitude and celebration. And we do that in our team meetings. We have done that a few times virtually over team meetings. But when we are all under the same roof, we really dive into this and we lean into being grateful and being celebratory over really anything. Yeah. So in our team meeting agendas, we have agendas for every team meeting, and it says the first few things are always the same, and then it changes based on the week. And so the first thing that we say is, hey, what are you grateful for in your personal life or here at work? Doesn't matter. Just what is something that you are grateful for? And it's not a big thing that you're grateful for every day, like your job or like your car or something that you have tangibly, but it's something that maybe you either take for granted that just showed up and you thought about it, or something that doesn't happen regularly. And so just talking about something that we're grateful for, that could be, hey, someone said something really sweet to me, and I'm so grateful for that. Kaylee has shown up in my gratefulness journal a couple times, just her speaking into me. and being that person. Sometimes cuddles with my kids, extra long cuddles with my kids, show up in my gratefulness. And so it can be anything, really anything, just something that doesn't happen daily. And so we talk about gratefulness, and everybody around the table gets to talk about it. And then we talk about celebration. What is something that you have done in your position here at work that maybe we wouldn't have noticed, or maybe happened and you just moved on to the next thing that we want to celebrate? And so we talk about that. And so it could be as little as a sweet email, or it can be, hey, I booked a client that I've been working on for a little while and they finally booked. It could be that Kaylee finished a lookbook project that has taken her a while and she finished it and she's so proud of it. We have had, I can't share it yet, but there's been something exciting happening behind the scenes on where we will be hosting a big course. And so that was something that I had talked about, that typically some of those things we would do in our job positions because that's part of our positions, and then we just move on to the next thing and we move on to the next emails or whatever it is. And so we like to call out a specific thing in the last week that said, you know what, I'm really actually proud of this thing. And I like to say, toot your own horn. Kaylee thinks it's a little silly that I say that. But
I know, it's hilarious. This is the funny, I don't know why this happened, but it was the funniest thing. So we recorded that episode literally that night. That night, my husband comes home. He's talking about something so stupid. He's like, yeah. He was like, I just need to toot my own horn for a second. And I was like, oh my gosh. It's like we literally just had a conversation about Cam asking other people if they say this.
Yes. See?
He said it.
Will is right in line.
I just think it's hilarious. I think it's so funny when you say it. It's just so funny because I'm like, yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yep.
But it's funny language to put around.
I just thought it was a normal thing.
Apparently. It is. It's totally
Will thinks it's a normal thing.
It is. Again, I'm for people, so
yeah,
there you go.
True.
But
that's true.
Yeah, and it's fun too, like as on a team getting to celebrate. Because then you start noticing what people are excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And you start noticing like what is meaningful to them, and then you can start noticing like how to celebrate that without them bringing it up. And so like knowing that you accomplishing one of your many to-dos, or not many to-dos, your many like goals that you want, I can now lean in and celebrate that. Or me, like if it's creative based, like you can celebrate that. And the guys, if it's a bar, like I can walk outside and notice, oh, they just finished the bar. I should celebrate that with them. And so, gosh, I could talk for hours. Like while you could talk about better than yesterday,
yes.
I could talk about joy and celebration and gratitude for days.
Yeah. Joy is just so important. We talk about it a little bit, I think, in servant leadership, about how you show up to work or how you show up to places.
Yeah.
But it can tie back to, see, here we go, tying back things together. But Brendan Bouchard, he actually, the computer is actually sitting on one of his books right now. It's called Performance Habits. And in the book and in some of his speaking engagements and on his podcast, really everywhere, which is great. But he talks about when he goes into a room or he shows up at a place, he thinks, before he goes in, he thinks this thing. He says, who do I need to be for the other people on the other side of this door? Who do I need to be for them? Do I need to be mourning with them over something that has happened in their life? Do I need to be celebrating something? Do I need to be a cheerleader on the other side of this, getting everyone's energy up and joyfulness up? And so I love that he says that, because it really goes back to intentionality. How are we being intentional? How are we showing up for others, and being servant leaders within, and being community oriented? Gosh, everywhere. And so I love that he says that, because I know that when I have my coffee and when I ride my Peloton in the morning, Kaylee knows, because I come into the office very excited. And so after that, I'm walking to the door saying, all right, I am like feeling good. I am ready to go, ready to tackle this day. And I hope other people are ready to go for it. And if they're not, maybe my energy will get them in the mood to do that. Maybe that's happened for you. Maybe you felt the energy that I bring into the office. Or at least I like to think so. But just the way that you show up. And that could be going home to your wife or husband or kids. And when you get home, what has their day been like? I know that my husband's already called me today and said the kids are going absolutely nuts today, which, we're all in the middle of quarantine, so not surprising. But I know that when I get home today, he's going to need a break. So who do I need to be for, one, my kids, and two, my husband? And so just thinking about it, just being intentional about your days. We unpack all of this even more.
Can you believe it?
I feel like we've unpacked everything, but
no, there's more.
There's more. Wait, there's more.
Drum roll, please. The Render Podcast.
Yes. It's what happens when we don't see each other every day like we always do. But the Render Podcast, it talks all about all of these things. Right now, you can go listen to it. I think there's probably a few hours worth of content on there. They are also paired with a blog post that Kaylee and I have both written some of those. That has just a deeper dive into it. If you don't think this is enough of a deeper dive, go see the blog post. So we give you tangible tips and tricks and things to check out that will further along that core value. So I hope you go listen to it. If you haven't listened or subscribed to the podcast, we would love for you to do so. Subscribing to the podcast not only reminds you when a new episode hits, but it also tells Apple or Spotify, wherever you're listening to it, that it's a worthy enough podcast for other people to search. When you search right now, because we don't have a ton of subscribers, you'll search the Render Podcast name. You might have to scroll a little bit to get to it. Well, if you subscribe, it helps it boost it to the top so people can find it. And so I hope that you can partner alongside of us and go and subscribe. We will release something every Wednesday at 8 a.m. And then right here on our Instagram, if you're listening on Instagram or YouTube or wherever you're seeing this video, every Wednesday at 10 a.m., we will go live on our Instagram page at the Render Podcast to unpack that episode. If we have a guest, that guest will be with us on the live. And so this next week on Wednesday, we have Kelly Simans, who is coming onto the podcast. She's going to show up live with us, and so you can put a name with the face and their voice that you heard on the podcast with them in kind of real life, but virtually.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, woo! Thank you for watching this
Celebrate
video.
that.
Yes. But we'll catch you later. See you later.